Good morning, class. Today we're going to talk about diction. So, what is diction? What do you think diction means? Yes,
Word we use?
yes, exactly. Diction is about the words we use and why the words we use matter. But to discuss this a little bit further, let's watch a short video.
Let's use Marco to show how diction can completely change a sentence without changing the meaning at all. Marco enjoys walks in the park and naps in the sun. Simple diction, informal voice, and weak word choice. Marco adores walks in the park and sun-soaked rests. We're beginning to elevate the diction here. It means the same thing, but showcases a stronger vocabulary. Marco fancies jaunts about the plaza and bathing in both sun and slumber. Now we have more complex diction, formal voice, and strong words that evoke strong visuals. But the meaning is still exactly the same. The point is, you can change the diction and really change everything about a text. Comedians don't just tell funny stories, they choose funny words to tell them. Writers won't just tell a sad story, they paint sorrow and agony with every word of a tragedy. Your favorite TV drama? The writers fold in climactic and sensational dialogue to set the scene. The sooner that you can recognize the intentional word choice of the speaker or writer, the sharper your skills will become.
Okay, so as we saw in that video, the way we use diction informs so many things, from our favorite comedians, our favorite YouTubers, our favorite books, our favorite TV shows, even just the conversations we have with each other, all involve diction. So let's talk more about why diction is so important. So, diction is important because of four main concepts. First of all, formality. You can have different levels of formality depending on what kind of diction that you use. So, for example, if you are talking to your friend, you would talk to them in one way, but would you talk to your friend the same way you talk to your boss? Of course not. That's totally different. If you talk to your friend the way you talk to your friend would think you're weird. If you talk to your boss the way you talk to your boss would think that you're rude and unprofessional. Can anybody give me an example of a formality difference between, for example, a friend and a boss? Yes, Nikki.
If I were talking to a friend, I would just say, "Hey, what's up, bro?" And if I'm talking to my boss in the morning, I would say, "Good morning, sir. How's your day going?"
Exactly. Thank you. That's a perfect example of formality. The way we use words, the sentence structure we use, or different words we use, like adding sir to talk to your boss. Those are all different levels of formality that exist when you're using diction. Another, strength. You can make your words sound stronger or weaker depending on what kind of words you use and what kind of sentence structure that you use. For example, say you see a girl passing by and you tell your friend, wow, she's pretty. That sounds pretty general. Okay, yeah, she's pretty. But let's say she walks by and you go, wow, she's the most magnificent being I've ever seen. That's a lot stronger, isn't it? And that definitely gives your friend the impression that you think she's really, really pretty. And so you can see an obvious level of strength difference between those two diction examples. Another example is the impression that you leave. The impression that you leave on your readers totally depends on the diction you use, what kind of tone you use with the words you say, what kind of words you use, what kind of sentence structure you use. You can leave whatever kind of impression you want on your readers. If you want them to feel sad, then your diction should reflect that. What kind of words you use, to make them feel those emotions, to impress upon them what you're trying to convey. And lastly, and perhaps most important, diction is a reflection of your identity. The words you use reflect your own personal experience, your own connection with language. And so, of course, the words that you use explain your identity. And there are a lot of famous writers who we can identify just by the writings they have. Let's look at a key example. What's in a name? A rose by any name would smell as sweet. Who wrote this? Obviously, most people would be able to tell it's written by Shakespeare. It's from one of his most famous works, Romeo and Juliet. And a lot of people recognize Shakespeare because of the way he uses language, the way he says things, the way he builds up his words. Yes, it's very old English compared to today, but he has a lot of works, and you can see through those works similar diction that he uses. Okay, well, let's go back. So now, moving on, let's try to see if we can identify each other's diction. Let's do an activity. So, our last class, we did some writing. Everybody had the same topic and they wrote a short essay about that topic. Now, I'm going to put you back in the same groups for those topics, and I will give those papers back, no name, and your task is to try to identify who wrote that paper, just using the diction. Who can you tell who wrote which one by the words they use, the sentence structures they use, and what kind of meaning they try to convey?
Ooh.
So I'll give you just a little bit of time, about 10 minutes, to read through and guess. Can you tell who wrote what? All right, guys. So how was that activity? Were you able to correctly identify which of your classmates wrote which essay? Nikki, how about you?
I couldn't really identify everyone's writing, so I just mostly guessed.
And that's okay. The difference is with like Shakespeare and your classmates, you don't know your classmates' writing that well. And you might not be able to identify their own personal voice in their writing yet. But the point of this activity was to see if you could tell the key differences between each essay. Could you at least tell the differences in the essays? Were there a lot of different usages of the language and the diction?
Yeah, the topic was the same, but the writings were really different.
Exactly, which is why diction is so important. Even if you give someone the same topic, the way they think about it, the way they express that is very different. And that all has to do with the diction that they use. So let's talk about how we can improve our diction. So, as important as a writer's voice is, it can always be improved. And you always want to be open to those improvements. So let's talk about 4 ways that you can improve your diction. So first off, by learning. The more vocabulary and expressions you learn, the more you can use in your own writing. As you develop your own voice, you can include more vocabulary and expressions that resonate with you personally as a writer. Also, reading more helps with accumulating more vocabulary and more expressions. The more you read, each author has their own distinct style, their own distinct diction. As you read the way that they convey their own stories and feelings and emotions, it can help you to figure out the ways that you want to convey those kind of messages. And you should be open to finding and developing your voice. You use diction for different things. If you're writing an essay for class, you have to write more according to the teacher's requirements. Still, your own voice is present in that writing, but you should still be open to the suggestions given by your teacher to improve that. Lastly, you should identify your audience. Who are you speaking to, and what are you trying to tell them? The same way, if you're talking to your teacher, doing an essay, that would change how you're going to talk. What kind of formality you use would be very different. If you're writing a book, a novel, what are you trying to tell your audience? Are they young? Are they older? So, in these ways, we can work on improving our diction while still keeping our own voice, making it more specific to what we're trying to convey and to whom. Okay, class, today we're going to end with a quote by Rufus Choate. You don't want a diction gathered from the newspapers, caught from the air, common and unsuggestive, but you want one whose every word is full freighted with suggestion and association, with beauty and power. Hopefully you'll keep this in mind for the next class. The words you use inform who you are. It expresses your own identity. Next class, we're going to work on that a little bit more.